Hunter x Hunter chapter 403 is out, and this was another solid chapter. I gotta admit, I am loving Hunter x Hunter even more now, and thankfully this chapter was not as dense as the last one. A good fair amount of information was in it, but not so much as I believe this won't be a 30-minute video again. We'll just see how I go with this. But overall, with how things are going, pieces are starting to fall into place. We got to see more of HALKENBURG using his ability. We get to see more of the political structure. We get to revisit the events of a previous chapter from another perspective, and the possibility of Benjamin enacting martial law, as well as the elimination of one, if not two more princes, I'll get into that later, might be the case. But before we jump into things, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. Also, let me know how you feel about the background. I changed it up for a bit, so let me know if you like this better in comparison to the last background. I might start doing it like this in my room from now on, but let me know. Now then, before we get started into this chapter, I do have to elaborate on a mistake I made in the last chapter. And I was assuming that Kurapika didn't know about Saradnik having the rest of the Kurta eyes. I'll put on screen the commenter that actually pointed this out to me. Sorry if I didn't respond to you. I can't respond to everything all the time, and I had a lot of other stuff going on over the weekend. But yeah, thank you for pointing this out. Kurapika did know about Saradnik having the rest of the Kurta eyes, but that's why I wanted to go to the fourth prince, be his bodyguard, try and get them back. Ended up being whole thing ended up becoming wobble. That's my bad. That's a mistake. I didn't mean to come off like that and spreading misinformation about the series. So I apologize for that. I was wrong. I went back to the chapter stated. Yeah, 100% I was wrong. That's what I get for not rereading the last 60 chapters before these new chapters came out for a refresher on every piece of information. So yeah, that's my bad. I'm going to try and see if I can reread some of these chapters during my free time, but I don't know if I can. I'll probably just see what I can do with that. But either way, thank you for pointing this out for me, and again, I'm sorry if I caused any confusion. But moving on with the chapter for chapter 403 of Hunter x Hunter, it's titled Results. And what's interesting is that this actually takes place 2 hours before the end of the last chapter. Now, something I did not call attention to in the last chapter was the day and the time of everything that was transpiring. Now, with how this whole arc has been going on, going over the course of multiple days for this voyage, dates and times are incredibly important, especially for this one. At the end of the previous chapter, it was said there was a rumbling on Tier 2, and so it was also assumed that it had to do with HALKENBURG. But now, at the start of this chapter, we cut back to Balsamilko as he is going to the Justice Department on Tier 2, and this takes place at 6:45 a.m. right in the morning, as he's going to try and make it to Prince HALKENBURG, as he is going to have less guards around him and followers, so it'll probably make it easier for him to go and infiltrate the place to enact his plan. Because, like we saw in the last chapter, he has a vial of a very contagious bioweapon that at very close range, 100% infection rate, and will kill HALKENBURG within like 2 hours. Further away you are from the epicenter of that blast, less likely you are to be infected. This is like pandemic levels of contagion, so yeah. Also, shout out to Grandline for a New World review, because after my last review I took a look at his video, and apparently there was like TSK17 is the name of the biovirus, and that was removed in the English translation, and after this chapter I can see why Pandemic 717, yeah, I could see why that would need to be removed. So yeah, that's very interesting. But moving on, Balsamilko continues to walk down the hallway. He sees two people off in the distance. But then when he turns around, he sees Vict. Now, I forgot who this guy was, but a couple of chapters ago, he is actually someone who went missing from Benjamin's party and one of his soldiers after he was actually possessed by one of HALKENBURG's followers, and thus we had no idea what happened to him. We just knew he wasn't dead because Benjamin's Nen ability did not gain Vict's Nen ability, so he was stated to still be alive. But after noticing Vict, Balsamilko is wondering what's going on. There's this rumbling, but HALKENBURG doesn't have any of his guards around him. So with the two people off in the distance, Balsamilko tries to talk to Vict, but Vict goes with military sign language saying that he knows and figured out HALKENBURG's ability. However, as this rumbling begins to keep going, we then get to see in the next page HALKENBURG readying his Nen arrow for his Nen ability as he is walking towards Balsamilko with a bunch of his followers, with just exuding literal aura as he's charging up his attack. Now this one panel of HALKENBURG and his followers literally exudes aura, like you can feel the tension in the air from this one singular panel. Very impressive. And also something I do want to add here is HALKENBURG in his head literally trying to get the right angle and positioning for his Nen arrow to actually be able to land its mark, which I like because he needs at least good aim to do this. While we all say that it could penetrate any defense and seemingly attack anybody without fail, he's got to get the right timing and angles down so it can actually hit. And then he launches the arrow, as then we cut to Benjamin in his suite. As this is actually during the events, like right before the events of Fugetsu and Kaiser showing up to give him a letter, as he's on the phone with one of his men talking about how Balsamilko has not reported in just yet, and also the fact that everything going on with Melody, trials postponed, and all that stuff. We are still getting a bit of that. But talking about Balsamilko, aka the captain, saying that things haven't gone right due to equipment issues, so Benjamin is thinking that something has gone wrong with the mission, or at least it hasn't gone all the way through, and to see if he was attacked and if his attempt on HALKENBURG's life was a failure. And so he ends up thinking of what this could potentially mean. Was HALKENBURG able to compromise Balsamilko? Was Balsamilko not have the opportunity to actually do anything to HALKENBURG? He doesn't know, so he's running through the option to see if they knocked each other out or anything else. Now we do know that it is stated that HALKENBURG fell ill and he's currently in stable condition at the sick bay. So something did occur, and something that I do want to mention in the last chapter, at the end it was mentioned there was a rumbling on tier 2, and the events at the end of the last chapter was 2 hours before what this event that we saw with HALKENBURG and Balsamilko was. So there is a lot going on, and stating that there was also 10 or so supporters around HALKENBURG when he fell ill and are around him right now. Benjamin comes to the reasonable conclusion that perhaps his followers ended up helping him and are part in an assist of his ability, and rightfully so, as HALKENBURG's ability is only as strong for as many followers that he has. Now obviously Benjamin is thinking that things are a trap, that has to be a fake illness for HALKENBURG, and maybe Balsamilko is compromised, and is wondering what Balsamilko will come up with for how things are going on, to see if he is being manipulated by HALKENBURG. And so Balsamilko gets on the phone, tells him he hasn't executed the mission just yet, stating that an arrow was fired, but it ended up missing his mark and he lost consciousness. Now this is very good. In terms of building up some mystery as to what is going on right here. And obviously Benjamin is wondering if this is collusion with HALKENBURG or if Balsamilko is being manipulated. And so worst comes to worst, if either of those possibilities is the case, Benjamin is going to enact martial law and purge both Balsamilko and HALKENBURG. And as you learned at the end of the last chapter, Benjamin is incredibly close to enacting martial law and going full commando on the rest of the ship for the Succession War. And Balsamilko is the only person that has kept him patient from doing any sort of mistakes that would compromise anything. So when Balsamilko gets on the phone, he says that there is actually their chance to actually go through with the plan to go and take out HALKENBURG, to unleash the virus. And Balsamilko states that he's aware that things could potentially be, well, suspicious for him right now, so he gave the condition that he will get results by the end of the day. And even if he doesn't, then assume that he is a traitor or whatever. So saying the right words and the right reasonings to Benjamin right now, so Benjamin at the moment just has no choice but to really set things into motion. And what happens right now, we end up cutting to 7:50 in the morning, which is a bit later. And so Benjamin ends up having one of his men go check out what's going on with the attack. and also states that for the rest of the men, until they hear back from Balsamilko and see what's going on with HALKENBURG for sure, all the men to be on red alert. And for one of the main signs is if Balsamilko leaves the Justice Department without notifying anyone, that martial law will be declared on tiers 2 and 3 at once. So, yeah, everything's going on exactly like things are definitely going to go wrong. And this is when Fugetsu and Kaiser show up with the letters. And Benjamin's main reason is revealed that he wants to see it because once he becomes king, he's going to need a good relationship with the Justice Department, so it's best for him to see it. We actually cut to one of the rooms with one of the queens, which I believe is Benjamin's mother, the first queen. And it seems she's talking to HALKENBURG and saying, "I'm proud of you, my dear son, if that's your choice," yada yada yada. And in the next page, the letter that Kacho wrote for Fugetsu to deliver to Benjamin states that the first queen is actually HALKENBURG's real mother, and out of fear of being disrespectful, she didn't say anything and kept quiet. And so the first queen asked a favor of the second queen to protect HALKENBURG and to essentially make him lower on the succession totem pole, and faking his truth of his birth and who his mother was, to kind of keep him safe. Though now it doesn't really mean anything to the succession war, but the rumors are true, and there's a big problem if it is. And that the first queen might be pulling strings for HALKENBURG and colluding with him, which the previous page seems like that might be the case. And one of the last words in the letter is to look after Fugetsu, is what she is telling Benjamin. And so Benjamin just says this isn't really worth anything of politics, merely just rumors found online, nothing shocking. Which is interesting to see if Benjamin might believe it to a certain extent, or he just truly doesn't believe it and he just sees it as rumors that can be found online. That's interesting to state. But yeah, this, for all we know, can in fact be true, because remember, the Kacho, the Nen Beast, wrote down all these letters with information that Kaiser, with information from the Justice Department on Durden and all the princes, essentially gave her to write down. So this is most likely 100% true, or at least something that is incredibly likely. And so Kaiser is essentially glad that Benjamin is relatively cautious based on this information, that he would have liked to shake him for a bit more information about the queen and all that, but it would definitely backfire if he did. And so, at the very least, he knows that he is very, very close to declaring martial law. So, their gamble so far, at least with Benjamin, is paying off to a certain degree. Now we end up cutting to a few more of the princes like Carmilla, Tyson, Tebepa. So we end up getting a bit of the reactions from second prince Carmilla, third prince Zanlei, we got Tebepa, and we got Tyson. And so we cut back to Melody, Kacho, and Kaiser talking about how it seems like things are going relatively well, as they've already set everything up for their plan, getting all the markers in place in all the princes' rooms. So they're stating how basically the ones that really rejected the letter were HALKENBURG, and since he was sick, and also Saragnik, who Saragnik either 4D chess, parallel future, read the letter and just made it seem like with that ability that he never read it, or just flat out refused it, or just flat out doesn't care. Saragnik just doesn't really care about much at all whatsoever. So that's interesting. I wonder if he's doing a 5D chess thing, because the possibility was out there that he could just have used parallel future to just read the letter without reading the letter by looking into a different future. That has a high possibility with all the Nen training that he has done. So yeah, that possibility is incredibly likely. And the other prince, I believe the 13th or 12th prince, the 13th prince, I forgot, the prince that Bisky is guarding along with Hanzo, they're in their own little pocket dimension, thanks to that Nen Beast, so they wouldn't be able to receive the letter anyway. But right now, things seem to be going relatively well, and so they at the very least are able to get things set up for their mission to basically assassinate a prince, which is 7th Prince Luzerus, as we saw from the previous chapter. So at the very least, they got things set up for the whole Luzerus plot line, and to see if that pays off in the future. But right now, we actually have a quick glimpse of Fugetsu in the sick bay, and it seems like she is in relatively bad condition, but it could be a lot worse. The spirits are kind of staying away from her now that they have Basho's haiku ward. If only he was better at haikus, his ability would make it a lot stronger. But that's all we can really hope for now, so we just gotta hope for her to get rest. And so now we know that tomorrow is when they're gonna enact their plan to try and take out 7th Prince Luzris, in the hope that it's possibly his Nen Beast that is essentially affecting Fugetsu in a roundabout way. Which, again, Nen Beasts, the Guardian Spirit Beasts, though the princes can't harm other princes. So unless a roundabout way loophole that's doing this, they're basically just going to commit murder. So, yeah, I guess. So, that's a thing. But yeah, after this, we cut back to Kurapika and Queen Oito, as they're talking about how the punishment for leaving the ship before the end of Section War is death, and that's what happened to Kacho after she left the ship. And now, seemingly, they're basically going to have to keep going until the Section War is over. But Kurapika says that while this is a powerful Nen that envelops the ship, is making things impossible for escape, it might not just be, it might be an actual hope for them instead. As he states that there's something that he needs permission in order to do for the protection of her, the other young princes, and Wobble. But before we get that, we cut back to Zhang Li, who is going over the coins from his Nen Beast. And here's the thing. This is definitely going to play some role in the future. It's Togashi, then coins are going to play some sort of effect. They're basically going over how these coins start off at 1, and then after 10 days, they became a value of 10. And so they're wondering, just marking down their value and when they were created and dropped by the Nen Beast, and to see what they could do with it in the future. But Zhang Li's like, ugh, these guys are morons. They don't have the basic future sight or knowledge or experience or whatever to kind of come up with a good way to make this usable or to figure out what this Nen ability is. And so he wants to call room 1014, which is Kurapika's room, because he's like, I need to understand this Guardian Spirit Beast's ability and its effects. I need Kurapika to get through this. Mainly, everything is going with the Nen classes, and he also really wants Kurapika's help to figure this out because, again, he doesn't really know much about Nen whatsoever, so he's going to need Kurapika's help. But then we come back to the Justice Department with Kaiser and the guy who I believe is part of the Dark Content Research team. I think, from what I was told, I went and asked a friend. His name is Steiner, I believe. I hope I'm right on this one. Let me know if I'm wrong. But they're discussing what's going on with HALKENBURG and what happened as well. And I do like how that there was some sort of information that some of his followers passed out alongside him in the waiting room while that whole Nen Arrow thing happened. And apparently what he said was, the experience of my people viewing me as like some sort of mass hypnosis. Once they meet me and they end up getting alarmed, they can just pass out from joy after basking in his presence. So, talking like a true politician that has their own head up their own ass. Actually, now that I think about it, that's basically most politicians. I really hope that joke flies well. I'm not funny, aren't I? Anyway, they're going to think that that there is something that is relatively concerning. One of the staff that was there during visitation did pass out from the same symptoms that HALKENBURG did. And so Kaiser thinks that this isn't a coincidence, is that he should try and tell them their situation in order to find out what HALKENBURG is trying to do and form some sort of alliance. Because remember, they have a letter for HALKENBURG with a bunch of stuff like the truth of his birth and all the dirty stuff in the dirty closet for the rest of for some of the princes, mainly Benjamin and Saradnik. So they want to get him on his side, especially considering that HALKENBURG has basically so far a good relationship with the younger princes and wants to protect them. Obviously, nobody knows that he's basically mentally deteriorating to becoming more brutal and more unhinged. But I still think he'll want to protect the other princes. So Kaiser and Steiner are discussing of essentially having him meet with this guy named Wario. I'm thinking Wario from Mario, to figure things out, find out about the inability of HALKENBURG, and forge some sort of alliance and figure out what exactly is going on. So we cut to the interrogation room where Kaiser is talking to Wario. So he's talking to Wario, and he's like, look, rest assured, you won't be censored because of any of your beliefs or whatever. You can talk freely. We know there's been some mysterious abilities used in the Succession battle. 10th Prince Kasho used that to escape the ship, and that cost her life. So, it seems the ship is covered by a barrier, and the king has something to do with it. He's coming clean about this information, mind you. And by doing this, he will essentially seemingly get more of Halkenburg's trust, so that he could learn more about Halkenburg's abilities and his goals and what's going on with him. Saying that they don't have time to waste on on some vague nonsense. These supernatural abilities are real, and the princes are using them as weapons. I support Halkenburg, separate from my duties as a Justice Department Chief, Prosecutor, and as long as the 11th Prince Fugetsu safety can be assured as well. It's then when Wario lifts up his left hand, revealing the feather mark on him, signifying that he's a follower of Halkenburg, but also a signifier of an ability that will help with Halkenburg's body swamping Nen arrow ability, saying that he received it from Prince Halkenburg. And Halkenburg said that if Kaiser ever brought up the topic of Nen abilities himself, that Wario would essentially comply. And so Halkenburg anticipated this very situation, and so if this is brought up with like no real ulterior motive seemingly, or without it having to be dragged out by coincidence, that Wario should explain things to him, saying you would obviously connect the dots for the mass fainting, and if you don't come to see him, it's proof you're wary of him, and that means you know of the existence of Nen. So yeah, Halkenburg, after learning all this and everything that's going on, he has grown a lot smarter and a lot more conniving around about with the cautious ways that he wants to do things. So I'm actually kind of glad about this, because Halkenburg is definitely in a very precarious situation right now, as Wario states that Halkenburg is going to die soon, which is interesting to see, because in the next panel we see Benjamin talking to Balsamilko on the phone, telling him that the mission is complete, as we see that Balsamilko, with the vestige of Halkenburg behind them, shows that it seems that Halkenburg hit his mark on Balsamilko, and he personally swapped places with Balsamilko's soul. So now Halkenburg is in the body of Balsamilko, and Balsamilko is seemingly like either suppressed or his soul is stuck in Halkenburg's body, while Halkenburg's body is like in the sickbay unconscious, surrounded by all of his followers, with Kaiser looking over him from the corner. So keep that in mind. He might put something together to figure out Halkenburg's Nen ability, for all we know. But with Balsamilko taking over, this might lead to the potential of Benjamin kicking the bucket next. Now, obviously, we'll probably have to see, Benjamin like fight or do something. But the fact that either Balsamilko doesn't have a Nen ability, which from all we know, if he doesn't have a Nen ability, then there's no way of Benjamin knowing that something's wrong. But since we saw Vict, the previous soldier that was hit by Halkenburg's arrow previously and disappeared, and he didn't get a transfer his Nen to Benjamin, he was most likely still alive. Halkenburg's arrow seemingly bypasses this, and they're probably still alive in some capacity. But either way, with all that aside, if Halkenburg and Balsamilko's body gets close enough to Benjamin, he could actually use that virus that Balsamilko had hidden in his boots to infect Benjamin. Now, obviously, Benjamin is definitely going to be relatively wary regardless, but if things go the way I believe, either Benjamin will die, Halkenburg might fail and he will die, or it could potentially lead to a double knockout, essentially, a two-pronged killing of the two of them from the virus. The virus kills Benjamin, and then Benjamin, in retaliation, kills Halkenburg within Balsamilko's body. That could lead to two princes dying. Or Balsamilko dies, Benjamin dies, and maybe Halkenburg's body will go back, Halkenburg's soul will go back to his body, because we still don't really know fully what happens if someone transferred to another body with Halkenburg's arrow ends up dying in another body. So that possibility is still out there. And when that's done, the only real threats in the contest are Camilla and primarily Saradnik. So yeah, two of the biggest heavy hitters right now are basically getting ready to go at each other without one of them truly knowing. So I'm curious to see how this goes out. But with all that said, we then cut to the end of the chapter, where Kurapika is discussing with Queen Oito of letting the letter that they received from Fugetsu with what Kacho wrote down, thanks to Kaiser, public. As he says, the second round of the Nen workshop begins tomorrow. Like last time, attendance will be up to the princes, and he will let them know that they'll be making the letter public. Now, but not Kurapika's letter, which is the one telling them about like the death of the princes and all that stuff, and some of the secrets. No, the one addressed to Queen Oito and Wobble, for 3 reasons. 1, the letters to the higher princes expose their scandals and crimes. If they get nervous that the lower ranked princes hold their secrets, it might accelerate their conflict. So, yeah, the first reason is to avoid suspicion if they reveal the letter. Second, he's hoping that making the 10th Prince Kacho's wishes known would actually put a damper on the succession battles, to kind of lower the mood, or kind of like postpone things to an extent from other princes, since obviously this is from Prince Fugetsu's whole letter, and the truth will definitely like put a stifle on things. But 3, by advertising the fact that they can expect some kind of contact from the higher ranked princes, they may come up empty-handed with other information. So depending on who comes knocking on their door and for what purposes, it could end up postponing or canceling the letter reveal as some sort of marketing chip. And the chapter ends with the Nen class starting up once more. So with this chapter over, things seem to be going in a very drastic direction. We can either get 2 princes taken out, or one of the other princes taken out due to circumstances like a virus, Benjamin figuring things out and taking out HALKENBURG. HALKENBURG might not even potentially die if he dies in Bolsonaro body. We got the plan to take out Prince Luzerus is potentially going to happen soon. We got some more perspective on Benjamin and how really close he is to enacting martial law once more through his perspective on things that happened in the previous chapter, but also how careful he's trying to be, but at the same time teetering on that edge. Kaiser figuring out, or at least attempting to figure out what's going on with HALKENBURG, form some sort of alliance, and figure out his Nen ability, and Kurapika trying to cause more of a stalemate through the letters that they received addressed to the Queen. Once more, relatively dense chapter to an extent, but not as dense as last week, but I did have a lot to talk about, so this was definitely longer than I anticipated, but either way, a lot happened in this chapter, and I am incredibly excited to see what will happen in the future of this story. But let me know in the comment section down below what you guys thought of this chapter and what you thought of the events in it. And let me know if I missed anything or any potential for what could potentially happen in the future and the implications of what happened in this chapter for the future of the story. Let me know everything in the comment section down below, and if you like this setup for the videos, if you like it like this, I might do more videos like this in the future with this going on in the background. So let me know in the comment section down below. And once more, like and subscribe and hit the notification bell for updates on future videos. Really helps, and it shows you guys enjoy the content I make here on the channel and shows you want to see more. And with all that said and done, I hope you all have an awesome day.